Hello everyone, I believe we are live and this is the World Awake Movement episode 6. You will notice today it's just me, my sidekick Fiona Boucher isn't with us, but I do have two fabulous ladies to have a good old chat with over our cuppers, don't we ladies? We've got Angie Davies there, and where are you in the Mount?
I'm in Mount Maunganui.
Yeah, Mount Maunganui. Yep. And we've got Julie Louisson, where are you, Julie? Where are you based?
I'm in Wellington.
Oh, that's right, you are. Cool. We need to really do this in person. Next
time. Where are you, dear?
I'm in Wellington. Yeah, I'm in Wellington and Whitby. Yeah. So, next time we can do this in person. So, we have a feeling that this conversation is going to span a few calls actually, because it's a big juicy topic, isn't it? And it's one that I'm really keen to talk about. I'll introduce a little bit. My perspective on this is that I've got a 3-year-old, Morgan, who, I'm obviously thinking about schooling and over the next few years. And I'm also a stepmother to 3 other kiddies. I've been a stepmum to them since they were 1, 3 and 5. And they're now 10, 12 and 14. And I take a kind of a peripheral supportive role in their education because they've got 2 very capable parents who are across that and make all the decisions around the schooling and colleges and all that sort of stuff. But I do quietly observe that they don't particularly have a real hunger or a passion for learning. And it all seems like a bit of a chore, and it really saddens me because they go to what I believe is a good school. My husband went to that school, the primary school anyway, that is. And the college that our son's at is a great college. They've got good programs going on and stuff. But yeah, it saddens me a little that there's not a real love and a hunger there for learning. And I think that's something that you get when I'm a big believer in the village raises the child, right? So, and I think when you've got that kind of atmosphere and community and a lot of adults and role models involved with raising children, then I think that curiosity and confidence is nurtured a whole lot more. And so that's why I guess I'm open to looking at other alternatives other than sending Morgan straight off to school just because that's what you do. I'm looking into homeschooling, I'm looking into unschooling. I'd love the idea of world schooling if we could, once we're in a position where we could go away and travel, the other kids are maybe a bit older. But yeah, so I guess I'm really interested in this conversation because from a bit of a selfish point of view in terms of what are the options to Morgan? What is the state of our schooling, our education system now according to, let's talk to a few people and get their perspectives and opinions on that. I really love the fact that we've got Julie here who has been a teacher and that we've got that kind of well-rounded, I don't want this conversation to go skew too far one way. I want us to be able to have, respect all sides, all aspects of the conversation, if you like. But the main topic that we're talking about today is what they're not learning. I mean, I know there's a myriad of subjects available to them. There's fantastic teachers out there who are really passionate about what they're doing. Every school has a different kind of focus, don't they? Some are more arty, some are more sporty. That tends to happen. There's a lot of almost too many, one could say, of options available to our kids. But what aren't they learning? And I know there are a lot of things that they're not learning. So it would be really cool to touch on that today. So that's sort of my perspective. I'd love now to ask Angie, let's start with you. What's your story, or if you like, or interest behind this topic? Why are you so passionate about it?
Yeah. Well, I feel I've got a story similar to you did. I've got 2 kids. Mm-hmm. My eldest is now 16, Sunny, okay. And I've got Melody who's just turned 12. And when Sonny was about 4 years old and he's getting ready to go to school, I was already doing a degree in social sciences, majoring in education. So I was already looking for ways for his education, his schooling to be centred around learning and him having a voice. And I was in early childhood education. I think we've got an amazing early childhood education system in New Zealand, and the way that we approach learning and how it's very child-centred. I think that's fabulous.
Yeah.
And so when he moved on to school, it was awful, actually.
Really?
He hated going to school. He absolutely hated going to school. And I hated making him go to school, you know. Yeah. It broke my heart every day because I had a love of learning and I was studying learning, and here he was not enjoying learning. And I was thinking, you're going to be here for a long time, honey. Yeah. You know, you've got a long time of learning, and you hate it already at 5, you know. And so I, like you did, looked into all of my options. I looked at the homeschooling, and this is, you know, it's 10 years ago. It was very limited back then. At unschooling, I looked at Montessori's and Steiner's, and I actually tried to start an alternative school in our hometown in the east of Benty. And a group of us parents all got together, and we did like a 2-year feasibility study and went and visited all these different schools. And we went down to Christchurch and looked at Discovery One School. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it. There's pros and cons about Discovery One School, but what we loved about it is that it was very child-centred and it was very parent-involved as well. I've got 7 years involvement with Play Centre, so we're very involved parents. Yep. And we looked at starting it up in the Eastern Bay. We had about 100 children register their interest to come, and our application got declined because of demographics in our area. So the population was declining in Whakatane. Right. You know, had it been in where I live now, maybe the school got off the ground. Yeah. But anyway, so I decided to go back to university and do there had to be another way, you know, to help these kids that just don't enjoy learning. So I went back to university and I did a master's degree, and I researched I designed this program. I co-designed it actually with the kids. Yeah,
wow, that's amazing.
It was so much fun. I absolutely loved it. Yeah. And it was this approach where instead of focusing on what they weren't learning, so say, you know, these were kids who were either meeting or below national standards, instead of, you know, when you go on for your parent interviews with your kids, or what are they called now, student-led conferences, you've got kids, haven't you, Julie?
Yes, I have, yeah.
We talk a little bit about, you know, what they're good at and what they've done well, and then the real part of the meeting gets started. Now, this is where you need to work on. These are the things where you're not so good at, and we're working on these. So with maths, you need to learn your maths timetables and this, and this, you know. And the parents are like, yes, well, that's the important part, you know, what they're not good at, and we need to help them get better at it. And so anyway, my approach in this program was, instead of focusing on helping kids get better at the things they're not good at, what about focusing in on the things that they are good at, you know, and really enhancing that self-belief of themselves as learners.
That they can learn, yep.
They can learn,
for example,
you know.
When I was a kid, I have memories of my parents saying to me, "Oh, Debbie, if only you could remember your, you know, I don't know, your maths times tables the way you do your lyrics," because I just ran around singing all the time. I knew all the lyrics to all the songs. It was effortless. I'd listen to something twice and it was in there.
Yes.
Maybe that was my thing. Music helps me learn. I don't know.
Exactly. And this is what we did in the program. We worked out, well, when have you learnt something and it made you feel really successful and really alive, you know, and you've got that shiny feeling like you did with your lyrics. You know, when you were learning your lyrics, you probably felt really good about yourself, you know.
Yeah.
And so when you reignite those neural pathways of, yes, I can learn and I was pretty good at it, it sparks more of those neural pathways when you've got a problem, see?
Yeah.
And so this is what we did over 8 weeks, and the results were pretty cool. Like, their self-confidence and their self-belief as learners grew into other areas, like on the football pitch and with their scootering and with bullying and things like this. So they had an enhanced belief of themselves, I guess. Yeah. And so to talk about, you know, what aren't our kids learning at school? Well, it's self-awareness is what I think. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think, Jolie?
Yeah, I was going to say that as teachers we are taught to be child-led, and there are lots of great theories about how to teach in a child-led way, which we all try to do, and I absolutely believe in and always busted my gut really to do as a teacher. But I just felt that within the regular school system there were so many confines on me, it really limited the extent to which I could do that. So that was part of my frustration, and really I guess one of the reasons I left the profession is I felt that I couldn't really be the sort of teacher that the children needed me to be. So just to give you an idea of some of the pressures, an easy example is national standards. So when parents come to the parent interviews, they didn't show so much interest in all the other things I had to tell them about their kids. They wanted me to get down to where are their kids on the national standards and how do they compare with everyone else in the class.
So that's a big reflection on parents and their generation and the way they've been brought up, right? In terms of what's important.
Yeah.
What was impressed upon them. Yeah.
Right. So they're walking into school expecting their kids to have similar kinds of experiences to them. They're using their experiences as their marker of how education should be. Yeah. And it's not until parents change their minds about what education should be that a real shift can be made. I think.
Yeah. So, okay.
There's also the issue of things like class size. How do you give that child the individual the attention that they need to process things and to become really self-aware when there are 29 other kids waiting on you. So, lots of different pressures, but those are just a couple that I felt really limited me. So I think teachers are passionate about each child as an individual and helping them to see where their strengths are and to develop their self-awareness, mind, body and spirit, but very restrained within the system.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, Jolie. When I first, when my son was 5 and I was having these feelings, to be fair, I did actually blame the teachers.
Oh,
and
so easy
me going in, and they are the ones working with my son, and this is the result. And I did have a lot of animosity towards teachers. And the more that I learnt about this, how it all works, the more I realise that it's a system thing, isn't it? It really is, because lots and lots of teachers I meet lots of teachers feel the same about you as you. You know, that they want to be so much more than that, but they're just so confined by what they can do, and they're stuck in the system. You know. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Very much. Yeah.
Yeah. They are. So, what's the way around that? Does it start with the parents then? Do we need to be the coaches, if you like, for our kids in terms of helping them build up more self-awareness and understand what their learning styles are, and talk to their teachers about that and ask them to implement it? I mean, how Julie, you talk about how the restrictions and how they're, you can only do so much. Are teachers able to work with individual kids the way their parents have stipulated, even if it's, a couple of things for them to focus on? Is it even possible?
Maybe with a bit of creative thinking. I always found one-on-one time with the kids, which is the ultimate was, a couple of minutes here and there.
Yeah.
It was very difficult to get sustained periods of time with just one child. Of course, there are ways of doing things in a class where you get them to all be self-reflective, and we certainly did some of that in teaching. For example, at the end of each lesson, you might have some questions that children had to talk through with a buddy, questions like, what's something new you learned today, what's something you struggled with, what did you feel that you were particularly good with, which bits did you enjoy. So there are whole group ways of doing things.
Yeah.
The ultimate is the one-to-one where the teacher can really tune into each child and who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose the big challenge for teachers is tuning into the kids who aren't tuning in or getting into it, right? And spotting that and being able to hone in on it and address them and find out where they're at with things, isn't it? When there's so much going on in a classroom. I can't imagine.
Yeah, there is. It's very, it becomes clear quite quickly who those children are. And as a teacher, I always did dedicate a lot of time to those kids and to adjusting my program. So it's definitely something teachers are aware of, that there are individuals in the class who need something different. And there's always the effort to meet it to whatever extent you can.
Yeah.
But as I said, limits. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Julie, in your opinion, what else is things are kids not learning in school that you would like to see more of?
I would like them to be able to bring more of themselves to their learning. So sometimes we just have a feeling about something and we can't justify it. And I remember going through this phase where thinking skills was a very popular thing to teach. And you'd always want children to have well-reasoned justification for all of their thoughts and ideas. We weren't really asking them to draw as much on their intuitive or creative capacities. There was a little bit of creative stuff in there, but I felt like the whole child wasn't met, and that's what I would like to see, where their intuition and other things are valued also. Yep.
Yep. I didn't really introduce you in terms of what you do now. That's sort of it's a lot of what you write about now, aren't you? You're a blogger, and tell us a bit about what you do quickly, just so people can put that in context.
Thanks. So I write a blog called Nurturing Little Souls at julielouisson.com, which is about practical spiritual parenting. So it's all about being led by our children's spirits. The ultimate idea is that their spirits will show us what they need if we just stop and pay attention to that. And it's about letting go of our agendas for them as their parents and letting their soul's agenda come through. Yeah. And really it's the same thing with the teaching.
Yeah.
Is that we have all these agendas about children matching up to national standards and ticking off certain parts of the curriculum, make sure they've been taught every part of the curriculum and all those sorts of things. And what we really want to know is what do our children need and want personally for themselves. So their agenda in life is important too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so awesome. Wouldn't it be cool, if all schools ran just like that? I totally and utterly endorse that way of thinking. Yeah.
But it'd be a dream for teachers and students alike. And hopefully their parents as well. Their parents can come on board too.
Yeah, so what's the secret to it though? Do we have to downsize our schools? Surely a big part of the problem is the ratio of teachers to children, or should parents be getting more involved in their children's education by having, what if parents' time were funded to a certain extent to come in and spend a few hours at school, and there were more adults and more.
It's funny you say that, because this school that we looked at setting up had exactly that. So if you were a part of the school, I think it was an hour and a half or 2 hours a week as a parent that you would volunteer your time for in the school. And you could do that in any way. You could do it by hosting a workshop with, you know, your own skills and talents. You could come in and just transport children around the city or wherever they needed to go. You could come in and just work one-on-one with kids. And like you say, Julie, like that one-on-one is the ultimate in education. Like if you think about the utopia of education, it's one-on-one. It always has been. And any removal from that, so 1 to 2, 1 to 3, studies have shown that the learning gets less and less, doesn't it? You know, so 1 to 30, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is, you know, one of the reasons I've considered homeschooling. You know, and I don't think everyone. Unfortunately, not everyone's in a position to be able to do that. But for the parents who do maybe work from home or decide to be dedicated, you know, parents, and that's their job, then I guess they can. And you know, a lot of people would say it's a shame for the kid then do they miss out on the social aspect of school as well? What's your opinions on that?
Well, for your listeners out there, dear, I've had a few kids come and see me for coaching that have been homeschooled, and it's not what we think it is. So there's lots of homeschool communities now. This one little girl, she was 11, came to see me. She was quite excited about her learning because every day this homeschool community would hook up and do something fun. So they went to swimming lessons on a Monday. On a Tuesday they went to the beach and had surf life-saving lessons. On a Wednesday they went to the library. On a Thursday they all went and got 4 hours of tutoring from reading and writing and things like that. It was, it's not isolated like we think it is. You can join a community, you can be a part and make friends, and the parents are involved if you want to be, or else you could ask your friend to take your child to the beach or whatever. So I think that option is more available than it used to be.
I don't know if this is an option. I mean, I suppose with homeschooling there's no rules, right? Except that you do still have to follow the state curriculum, don't you, with homeschooling? With unschooling, you don't. Is that right? You might not know about this.
I don't really know enough. Sorry.
Okay. That'll be another topic.
But
but some of my ideas were, you know, if you have even in a smaller community like a suburb, a number of families who are all homeschooling, there is no reason why those children couldn't move around from location to location, and that parent that's hosting is helping them in an area that they're particularly passionate about or skilled in or experienced in, and that the children move around a bit as well, but they stay together as a unit. I don't know if that's something that could happen as well. So, mate, is homeschooling the answer? I mean, who knows?
I think it would be for some families. Obviously, there are families who both parents have to work and there's no option.
Some people just don't have the propensity for it, right? They just...
No. I mean, I even wonder, what would I be like if it is a homeschooling mum?
Me too. I do wonder if it would be enough for me, you know? Like, because it is...
When I was looking at homeschooling, I realised that it wouldn't work because my kids don't listen to me. They'll listen to someone else, but they don't necessarily listen to me. So I wasn't the right person to be homeschooling them.
Right. Yeah. That's
so I guess one of the questions is, what is the regular state education system actually meant to do? Are we asking it to do something that is a parent's job? Should it be completely redesigned? It raises a lot of those sorts of questions, doesn't it?
Yeah,
exactly.
I
think about those too. Yeah.
Or even just the size of schools. Should there just be more schools and more teachers? What's the involvement of the parents? And as Fiona mentioned in the comments as well, she's jumped on and is commenting, also for the elderly. There's a place for the elderly in our children's education, right? And bridging that gap, which unfortunately in our Western society tends to get wider and wider, when actually, that whole village concept again they're a big part in our children's learning and in carrying on traditions and even skills, that are dying with their generation. Can we bring more of the community involved into the schooling system? Why do the only people involved in the educating have to be formally qualified and go through the system? And can we let go of that side of things and still see benefits? I'm sure we could.
Yeah, I think maybe the accountability is one of the things that get in the way. So we like to hold our teachers and other professionals accountable for what they do. And accountability generally means measurability and proving that you have done X, Y, and Z and that sort of thing. So I guess a looser sort of framework or way of doing things isn't going to satisfy those people who believe that teachers need to be held accountable and schools need to be held accountable, for example.
Yeah, totally agree with you, that so much of our learning has come down to what you can mark, what you can see, and that you can tick something off and say, yes, they have learnt that. For example, when my son was about 7 and he was doing his spelling words, learning his spelling words, he really, really struggled with his spelling and maths, but he really struggled with his spelling. And I worked out one night that if we did it with a soccer ball and we kicked a ball every time he would say the letters of the words, that he learnt them so much easier. And I worked out he was an audio learner, he could really quickly rattle off BECAUSE, But then when he got a pen and he sat down in front of the paper and he was in a test sort of situation, he freaked out and would get his spelling wrong. And I said to the teacher, I went in and I said, look, I've worked out that he does know his spelling words. He just needs to say them. Can't you just test him with orally? Can't you just test him? And they said, no, sorry, we need evidence. Yeah. We need written evidence that he can spell. So, I was just so disappointed with the system. Why does something have to be measured? Why can't you just trust that someone is learning something? And how can you actually ever measure what someone has learnt from that experience anyway? How can that measured?
If you're measuring spelling and you're wanting them to write it down, you're actually measuring spelling and handwriting, aren't you? And
true.
So what are you actually testing here? If it's spelling, why can't they spell it out? But then you got those spelling spelling competitions and stuff where they just stand there and spell out the words. They don't have to write it down then. I don't get that. That's really irrational.
Yeah.
That must be really frustrating. What else are they learning? Yeah.
I wanted to touch on something that Kim Knight said last week in her bullying thing. That was fabulous, by the way. Love to meet her one day.
She's an awesome lady.
She said that, and I wrote it down, she said that children need to learn that they have a right to stand up for themselves, and that they need to trust their feedback from their bodies, which is their guts and their hearts. Yeah. And if it feels bad, then they need to know that they have a right to voice. Yep. And this really, really spoke to me because a lot of my research is all about having a voice, having a student voice, which is your personal power, by the way. Yeah. And that what happens for them is that their heads get in the way and they kind of rationalise it and they go, mum is stressed, or it's a teacher, I can't really fight back with a teacher,
Or I've tried before and they didn't listen, so what's the point?
And so then they learn not to listen to their intuition and their gut and their heart, and they push it away. So my daughter had a situation recently, so she's 12, where they were watching a clip on Nazi Germany, and she's very she's very sensitive to energy and spiritually as well. Mm-hmm. And she said to the teacher, I don't feel really comfortable watching this. And the teacher said to her, so that's her listening to her gut, mm-hmm. that's her listening to her heart, that's her actually having a voice, because I encouraged that for her. And the teacher said to her in a very gruff voice, get used to it. Mm. Oh my now, goodness. This sort of thing happens a lot in the classroom, and I can picture the situation, you know. There's 30 kids, and they might be all mucking around, and some of them aren't listening, and some of them are rah, and there's this one little, you know, 12-year-old that's had a voice, but because of the situation of the classroom or whatever, the teacher hasn't been present enough to actually lock in with her and say, gee, let's attend to this, you know. You may leave the room or whatever. Attend to her voice. Yeah. So Kim also said, you know, that we can listen to our children's voices, but that we can also override them at the same time.
Yes, exactly.
And this comes through in a lot of studies as well, that when you give children a voice, so voice is pretty much giving their opinions, their beliefs, their values, may even be their cultural backgrounds, their perceptions of things. So when you give children a voice, but then you do nothing about it, and you don't move on it, it's actually far more detrimental for the kids than actually giving them a voice anyway. Yeah.
Or trying to talk them out of their voice.
Yes, that's something else.
Yes, I caught myself actually starting to do this the other day. My son was telling me something he was disappointed in, so he hadn't done as well in his spelling as he wanted to. And I started reassuring him, what about all the 23 that you did get right? You got 5 wrong, you got 23 right. It's great. And I was being quite positive, but at the end of the day, I was talking him out of how he was feeling. And in the end, I just sipped my lip and I said, I can see you're disappointed, and we had a cuddle on the couch. Aww. And just taking that moment to acknowledge how they feel and let them sit with how they feel and not trying to change their mind.
Yeah.
But also, as you say, opinions, everything. If we could just sit with them, even not respond if we don't know what to say, but just allow them to have it, that would be the first step, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. Because it's okay to feel. It's okay to feel. Full stop.
Yes. Yeah. We could probably bring more feeling into our education. I mean, there were definitely times when I was teaching where I was interested in children's emotional response, but it certainly wasn't a strong part of the way I taught.
Priority. Yeah.
Because if we want them to have emotional literacy, they need the chance to feel their feelings and to recognise what their feelings are. If we ignore their feelings, then they really don't get to become familiar with them.
Yeah. And Angie, you've got some perspectives on this, haven't you, around tokenism, if you like, the tokenism of having a voice, and you know, a lot of schools are talking more about, you know, to express your feelings, but they're really sort of just scratching the surface. They're not doing what you were just explaining, Julie, which is allowing them to actually sit and feel the feeling. They're just getting them to kind of, I don't know, describe it and then try and change their state potentially. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah. What's your perspective on how schools are helping our kids deal with their feelings and learn how to sit with their feelings, Angie?
I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, I find it really hard to diss teachers anymore, you know, because I know what it's like. I know it's hard in the classroom. Yeah. But what I do know is what I see. Yeah. So I coach children, and so kids come to me. That usually they're just not feeling okay to be themselves. Yeah. That's pretty much the core of it. And so they're very unaware of who they are and what their strengths are and even what their feelings are, yeah. And so maybe teachers are doing this in the classroom, maybe they are, I'm not sure. But for whatever reason, there's some kids that aren't getting it, you know, they're not picking it up, they're not learning it. Yeah. And maybe, I don't know, maybe these kids that see me, maybe they're not learning that in the classroom. Yeah. So a very, very simple activity that I play, which for your listeners, Deb, this will be a really easy thing to do, is I've got, and I drew them, but you can actually you can Google it on the internet, emotion, maybe just emotions, just Google images of emotions. Yeah. And they're little faces with like a happy, there's sad, there's disappointed, there's jealous, there's lonely, there's you know, a whole range of emotions. And I ask the kids to either sculpt out of Play-Doh or draw a picture of themselves. And it doesn't have to look like a person, like they could be anything they wanted. Like the other day, a boy, he's 11, was a Lamborghini. And another time a boy was, he was grass. Yeah, anyway, you get them to make a picture of themselves and then hold up the card for them and say, you know, if you feel this feeling, stick it on the picture of you. And if you don't feel it, then we'll chuck it in the rubbish in this little bin, you know. And then so most of the kids don't even know what some of these emotions are. Wow. So this is a great opportunity to be going, well, what is, so they know confused, surprised, what's stuck on? Optimism, you know, hope. Yeah, do you feel hope? Do you feel optimism? Do you always look on the bright side that something good's going to happen? And so this is an opportunity for them to learn what a feeling is and then self-reflect and go, well, do I feel like that? And then sometimes they want a little sometimes area on the picture as well, you know, because they don't feel it all the time. So that's a really simple activity that parents can be doing at home to help their kids identify feelings. And if you wanted to relate it back to school, you could get them to have that as their focus. So do you feel these feelings about learning or about school? Yeah. Is it just home or, you know, that kind of thing? Yeah.
Yeah, good point. You know, that's when you mentioned that one emotion, you know, optimism and hope, even I had very conflicting ideas around what hope means up until even just last year. So as part of my family's name, family motto is hope for the best. And I grew up ashamed of that. I thought it was a very negative, disempowered statement. Isn't that interesting? And it's only recently that I've learned actually hope is that eternal optimism, even in the face of constant adversity and when things are looking, you know, down, that you still have that hope. That it's actually a very empowering and positive trait. But I grew up feeling it was completely negative, so isn't that interesting? And how many of our other kids might think of hope as a disempowering, powerless state, you know, or a powerless emotion. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Isn't it? Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, yeah, because I was hope, well, it was especially in context of hope for the best. It was like, because nothing's ever going to go right for this family, so you may as well just cross your fingers and hope.
Oh, see.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, rather than, now I look at it as always choose to hope for the best in any situation and in life, and always choose to hope for that positive outcome and hope for the things that you want, and don't hold a space for the opposite, if you like. Yeah. So now I see it completely differently.
Interesting. And it probably wasn't until you self-reflected and became aware
that's right.
That's how you felt about hope, that you had an opportunity to change how you felt about hope.
That's right. And a lot of my self-awareness and learning and self-development has happened later in life, not earlier in life. Yeah.
But, you know, I wonder, because at the heart of what I do is it is a personal development journey, the program that I do with kids. And I often wonder, you know, what will it be like for these kids who learn about the stuff, learn about themselves and become really self-aware of their feelings and their perceptions. I wonder what it would look like in the future, like if all kids had that level of awareness. Would they have to go through all that shit so then you learn personal development when you're older? Or what would the future, what could it look like, if they learnt that at such a young age?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that was the motivation for me starting my blog, is that I wanted my boys to grow up knowing all these things and not have to go through somehow trying to figure out or discover them in their 20s and 30s. Wanted them to have these sorts of skills all the way through. Yeah. So it's second nature. It's the way of living. And having that self-awareness is something that is always there for them, not something that they have to unearth and develop later in life.
Yeah.
I was going to say, in regard to the school system, in our curriculum we have 5 key competencies. You might have heard of these, Ange. Thinking, relating to others, using language, symbols and texts, managing self, participating and contributing. And I think a lot of things we've talked about today fit into those key competencies really well. And if we could shift the emphasis of teaching and learning to growing those key competencies, regardless of the subject area, so it doesn't matter whether it's science or PE or health or history, whatever it is. So if we could focus on those instead of the subject areas, I think that would be a really positive move forward.
That would.
Totally agree. Totally agree with you. Yeah.
I think if teachers could be sort of given permission to them, then I think that would be a great first step forward.
Yeah.
If we're not going to be homeschooling or setting up our own schools and our kids are going to go to regular schools, I think that would be a great first step in change.
Yeah. And you know what? I think we talked about this just before. What can parents do? I've always believed that there's a lot of power that you have in, I want to say like a mass. There's power in the people.
Power in the numbers,
Power in the numbers, And I think, I can't remember if it was you, Deb, or you, Julie, who talked about if enough parents can shift the way that we think about education, to shift the focus away from the subject matters, away from those core, reading, writing and maths, which is so what national standards sort of descended upon the nation, as if those were just absolutely so important. If parents could learn that, yes, those things are important, and these 5 competencies that are also a part of the New Zealand curriculum are equally as important, then when they turn up for their parent interviews, their student-led conferences, the emphasis might not be so much on timetables, It might be on the child's self-awareness and their contribution and things like that,
Yes, steering the conversations around to that.
Yeah. Yep. So when I turn up to the conferences, I don't give a shit actually how they're doing on the scale, the star scale or whatever thing reading they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, I know my kids can read. I know that they're fine. If they weren't fine, then maybe there would be another conversation to have.
Yeah.
But what I care about is how are they actually doing at school? Are they getting into trouble? Are they participating in class? Are they enjoying themselves at school? Because as you know, when you enjoy something, it makes the learning so much easier. So really the focus for parents should be, is my child having fun at school? Yeah.
As a teacher, that's my first measure. My son is always so delighted to go to school, and I'm just so thrilled about that. I think it makes a real difference. And as you were saying about parents en masse, schools are obliged to consult with their community regularly on their delivery of the curriculum. Right. So there are opportunities for parents to have their say. Of course, they can go in at any time and say what they've got to say, but I think often at these meetings that schools organise with parents, the attendance can be quite low. So it is up to us to get involved and to have a voice if we want things to change.
It is. It is. So, and you know, I hate to say it, but even doing things like having this conversation and sharing this conversation so that more parents can listen in and just think about it. Just sit on that and think about it a little bit in terms of what could they change, what could they do to address some of these. Kaz just mentioned that she's just joined. She's not very keen on the system, very controlling and not free thinking, not taught about their awareness, empathy, or how to talk about how they are feeling. What about meditation? Teach them to not be stressed, and stress causes so much pain. There's another one. Nice one, Kaz. Yeah, really good. What about meditation in schools? I've heard some schools are introducing a bit of yoga, but you know, it's not in the curriculum, and it's not a permanent feature either, is it?
There's a really great organisation in Australia, and I think it's called Mindful Schools, Mindful something for schools anyway. And I was actually in a course with the guy who invented this organisation. We use a similar strengths-based approach in our work. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so it's getting bigger. It's getting more out there, this mindfulness for kids. And I think that would tie in with your work too, Julie. And, you know, mindfulness is just the ability to shut off all the worries. You know, if there's bullying or if there's worries about failing tests, and it's the ability to shut off all that stuff and just to tune in with your intuition, isn't it? You know, and that's your inner beacon, your guide about what's the next right step to be, you know, and that you're okay. So teaching mindfulness would be awesome. I also teach that in my program. So, yeah. Yep.
So, you know, even more of us pushing for that. And what about on a state, at the state level? You know, how can we push for this stuff to get introduced into our schooling at the national level?
Social media is pretty powerful.
Yeah, and
this interview here.
And also starting smaller in the communities, right? So if there's more families pushing it in more schools, then those schools have to report up, right? I mean, it's going, there needs to be, again, it's the power in the numbers. There needs to be enough of us that care and are pushing for this. And how can we expect children to use their voice if we're not going to? We're the role models in their life. We're the ones that need to be standing up using our voice. This is what this is all about. It's to have conversations that matter and use your voice and stand up and have the courage to say what you really think and have those kind of tough conversations, if you like, especially if they're not in the mainstream school of thought. Pardon the pun.
Right.
We've got to set that precedent, haven't we?
We really do. Yeah.
Interesting stuff, ladies. I feel like that this is quite a good place to end it, but we should definitely pick up this conversation again and maybe talk a little bit more to, you know, all of those sort of, all of the things that we would like to see being introduced into the schooling system or into our kids' schools, the self-awareness, that kind of thing, the mindfulness, the fact that it's okay to just be me, it's okay to use my voice, it's okay to feel my feelings, to tune into my intuition and let that guide me, and to have a voice. So we could certainly dig into those deeper in the future. We could also have the whole conversation around the homeschooling, the unschooling, the world schooling as well. The other options.
It would be really interesting to have someone come on, Deb, who is homeschooling their child and is a part of one of those groups or communities that I referred to before. Because it's a big movement in the States. I know that it's one of the fastest growing.
It's growing here too. I actually did share this in a homeschooling Facebook group, but I haven't been particularly active in there yet because I'm just you know, like I said, putting my toes in the water and testing things out. But yes, I'm very keen to get some of those parents in on these conversations and let us have a sort of get an understanding of a slice of life for their kids and the types of things that they're doing, and how they believe they're benefiting their kids. I'd like to get people, even Janine Ogg, who has done a bit of both. She's letting her daughter tell her where she wants to go, and so they're chopping around a little bit. There are a lot of parents who are wanting to be able to slip in and out of the state system, and to fit in with their lifestyles, to fit in with what their child's really wanting right now, as well. And interesting having conversations around the flexibility of doing that, because some schools need to hold a spot and all that kind of thing, and all those challenges that it brings up as well. But definitely keen to have more conversations around that. And I'm very keen to have more conversations about what we as parents could be doing to raise these, not concerns, but introducing these things into our local schools in a proactive way. How can we take that next step, and have those conversations with our own schools, in our own communities, and then further up the line, so that it does become, so like you say, those 5 competencies do get more, the same as, if not more, focus than the curriculum.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so great. Lots more to think about, and definitely invite anyone who is watching, who hasn't necessarily watched live but watches the replay. Look, if any of this is resonating with you and you really want to get involved in these conversations, please just reach out to me via my page. You can go to our website, www.worldawakemovement.com, and find out a little bit more about what this is about. You can subscribe there and get notified about the upcoming conversations. And I also email out at the beginning of each month around with a suggestion of topics and things as well, so that if there are any topics that you want to come in and get involved in, you can let me know and I can schedule that all in. I think next month we will just continue with this conversation, because I'm loving it and I'm feeling it right now, and let's see where it takes us. But awesome. Thanks very much, ladies. I'll be in touch with you, Angie. I'd love to get some of those links that you talked about today, the mindful schools in Australia as well. We talked about the Discovery School in Christchurch as well, did we?
Discovery One, yeah.
Discovery One, as well as your own websites as well, ladies, if parents want to come and check out what you're up to and how to work with you and stuff. So thank you so much for coming along.
Oh,
yay! And we'll speak to you again soon. You have a great day, ladies.
See you
Thanks
later.
everyone for tuning in.
Bye, Jolie.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.